would drive by every single day to work, and he was like, yeah, I'm driving by the Speedway. And I was like, oh, cool, like, gas station. No, the racetrack. Speedway. Yeah. Whenever my brothers come to visit, the first place I'm gonna take him is on a drive over next to the Speedway. Be like, yeah, so here we got some barns. There's the Michigan International Speedway. There's another farm.
Yes, that's about it over there. There's a lot of wedding barns over there.
There is a lot of wedding barns.
I had my prom there.
My prom was always done at whatever condo would let us host it there.
We had a orchestra place in Jackson Orchestra, building Nuggets, and then we had the barns.
Nice. I feel like one of those was a little nicer.
Okay, I can go to Germany for $913.
Huh?
Still cheaper
Still cheaper than one day night stay. Or one day night, one night stay.
Are you planning? No, I was looking at like.
Does that like include drinks?
At a resort for his internship, you know, my son. And I was like, maybe I'll go stay at the resort for a night.
I was gonna say, if it's $1,500 a night, it should include drinks.
The most expensive is $1,500. Yeah. So, and then we were talking about we go to Europe for cheaper. Yeah.
We can go to Germany for that.
Is it round trip or is it one way?
Yeah, round trip.
I said if it's round trip, I might look that.
Might look up.
Everyone get your passports, we're going.
Oh god, I do need to get one of those.
They are taking them really quick, because I had Lex get one, and literally, less than a month after she submitted all the paperwork, she had them in like her possession. It was quick.
Yeah.
Unlike mine, that took like eons, it was an eon. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm like, there, it's all take it back. Can you just pull up the micro syllabus and tell me the date? I don't know, I still can't access it.
It is Monday at
That was the one.
Oh, Emily, I'm going to Florida like right after school ends to go visit home,
Yeah.
which means that in peak time, like peak busyness here in Florida, right after college ends, people are like going there immediately. They're like, get there before it gets busy. It's really busy. Peak time, I've got 2 tickets, a round trip for $500. So like $1,500 is free.
Can I come? And then I'm going to New York like right after. Okay. So then I'll be home for all 5 minutes and I'll go, bye.
Yeah, this one is Monday.
If you don't want to come to Florida, I got a jet ski, that's pretty cool. And tubes, and these boards, and I can skis.
You said 1 at 3 or 3? So I have 2 exams Monday and 1 Wednesday. That's it.
Hi, Grace.
Hi, how are you?
You should be.
Yeah, I'm here like 40 minutes.
You need any of your other accounts then?
Nope, that's it. I just had that one.
Oh, okay, I see.
Oh, it's not.
No, that's the wrong, I'm in the wrong function.
You know, I just did that over my genetics homework and was really confused.
I was looking at the extra.
Oh, it's actually the exam.
Sorry.
And I can't, it still will not let me open anything, so if I go back and like watch the videos, sorry. And when I go back and like, I feel like go back my friends, I can't even go back and like watch them. Thank you, thank you. Go back and watch them because I don't have the thing to log in yet.
We're going in.
every time I go outside, I know. I just go outside when I can, because I have to be out with the.
Lately kind of was dorm, where kind of green was kind of like,
Okay. I just Googled it and it feels like the same thing.
It's kind of so different.
Okay.
Yeah, if you wanna, like, that's for the lab.
Yeah.
Just answer the question.
And just bring them to you? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Well, happy Easter Monday, everyone. So, hopefully you had a nice break, and glad you're back. Mondays are always a little bit in catch-up mode, so here we go. So there you go. So I guess we'll kind of review the schedule here. So today or this week we're going to learn about the adaptive immune system in chapter number 15. And remember that Tuesday we don't have a lab session because of the Ribbons of Excellence Day. So hopefully you'll all be participating in those presentations. There is no assignment for this class to go to any of those. Yeah. But remember that you're supposed to be working on your presentations about one of the bacteria that you identified during the semester. You had that one worksheet with all those different fields to find information about. How are you doing with that? Are you done, or are you still working on it? Still working on it? Anyone done with that sheet? All right. Anyone else? All right. Well, don't worry. You still have time, right? But hang on to it. Hang on to that sheet because you will be reading from that when you give your presentations to the class. All right. Any questions about that one form? Find information about your bacteria. Any questions about that? Okay, on this Friday, President Docking is having his, I guess his annual State of the College address, and that's scheduled for like 12:15. And I was told that that does run over a little bit, so I don't know, has anyone in the past gone to one of those State of the College addresses, so I can get a sense of, you know, how long that will take? Anyone go to those in the past? Okay, anyone go to that? Blessing, did you go to that last year? State of the College? How long did it take?
Doesn't it happen in the evening?
This one is scheduled for 12:15 on Friday.
Sorry.
Oh, maybe an hour?
I can't estimate, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Say 2 hours. Say 2 hours.
2 hours. Okay, well, I pretty much have to go to that one, so, you know, if I find out how long it'll take, I'll try and let you know on Wednesday. You know, like if it you know, because it starts at 12:15, if it goes an hour, then I won't be able to get back here till 1:15. If it goes, you know, 2 hours, then we won't have class at all. So I'll try and find out, and we'll let you know. All right, so next week, I'm gonna be in Wisconsin, so I'll be in Wisconsin next week on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, so, you know, no class Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday for next week. But I will be back, you know, that Thursday and Friday, so we will have class next week on Friday. And then we just have one more chapter to go after this one, so we're going to end the course with chapter number 16, looking at the interactions between our bodies and these microorganisms. And then our last exam is not cumulative, so it's not a final exam. It will be our last exam though, which will be just over the last 2 chapters. So chapters 15 and 16 for our last exam. And then we pretty much just have one last lab session, and that will be when you give your presentations. All right, any questions about the schedule?
The last exam is finals week.
I'm trying to remember, I believe that is correct. I believe so, yeah. I believe it's, I have it on the syllabus, I think it's on a Monday. Monday at what, 1?
1 to 3.
1 to 3, okay, was it the 29th or something?
The 27th.
27th? Okay. Monday the 27th for our last exam, 1 to 3, okay.
And what is that?
That one should be the week before, which is my calendar. Anyone have a calendar?
Thursday the 23rd is the last lab.
Oh, freak.
Tuesday the 23rd?
Thursday the 20th, or Tuesday the 21st.
Tuesday the 21st.
Sorry, I was reading Thursday. I was thinking of developmental lab.
Okay.
So Tuesday or Thursday?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
I was thinking of my mother's lab.
Okay, no, thanks. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's a busy time of the year, right? So lots of things going on. So. All right, other questions?
Lab presentation or lesson for lab, or is there a lab like practice?
No lab practical, so it's just your presentation, which is kind of like a cumulative of, you know, the majority of the work that you've been doing this semester, which has been on your bacteria, and the steps that you took to identify it. I don't know if you realize it, but every lab that we did worked. So I know that, you know, for some of those tests, you know, like that KOH test, some people got positive results and other people didn't get a positive result, but at least somebody got a positive result. So, which is the way that was designed to do. You know, it kind of depends on what your bacterium was, whether you get a positive or a negative result. But the way it was set up, you know, all the labs worked. So good work. You know, that means that's a testament of you, right? And being able to, you know, do the procedures correctly, and then you know, being able to interpret the results. So very good. All right. Too much talking, right? Let's do some learning. I think we're actually going to start off by kind of summarizing. You know, what are some of the differences between the adaptive immune response that we're going to learn about shortly and the innate response system that we just learned about in chapter number 14. So I'll try to summarize some of those differences on this whiteboard here for us, so that we can kind of put things into context. So on the previous chapter, this is not the greatest marker here. Previous chapter, we learned about the innate immune response or immunity. And then today we're going to begin learning about chapter 15. And this one's called adaptive . Okay, so who can recall what are some of the features of our innate immune system? Anyone recall?
You have an innate immune system, you got to develop an adaptive immune system.
That's right. So the innate immune system you have since birth, right? So you're born with this one. Your book referred to it as like a first line of defense. You know, this is the things that you already have that pathogens would encounter. And that would give, because you already have it, it's an immediate defense, basically, to whatever you may encounter. But your adaptive immunity, on the other hand, this is something that you develop, you know, over the course of your lifetime, after exposure to a pathogen. I don't know, can you read that or not? is that too dark? Can you read it?
I think we could, yeah.
And it does take a little bit of time for the response to be mounted. So we're looking at days to weeks there. Where's our light switch here? This one? There we go. Okay, there we go. So on not day one, but day 0, you have your innate immune system working for you. But then after exposure to a pathogen, then you can develop a response days or weeks later. All right, your innate immunity works against, you know, lots of different things. So we call it being general. You know, for instance, your skin is an effective barrier to pretty much the majority, if not the majority of bacteria, viruses that you encounter, even non-pathogenic substances like pollen. So it's there. But your adaptive immune response, this one is highly specific. So it's going to operate against a particular bacterium or virus. It's going to be able to distinguish something harmful versus something that's not, like pollen, right? And then previously for chapter 14, we learned about some of the different kinds of cells that are involved in your innate immune system. So we learned about those granulocytes. Those are named because they have substances referred to as granules that they can release. Some of them are like neutrophils or basophils, eosinophils. And remember that your neutrophils are also phagocytes. So you have a bunch of cells that can engulf microorganisms, break them down, and then remove them. So you have those macrophages. And those dendritic cells. And then in addition to that, we learned about the collection of proteins that can assist with various processes. Remember that your textbook used the letter C and a number afterwards? Do you remember what that system is called? What does the C stand for? Complement, there you go. You have the complement proteins or system. And those could help with a lot of different kind of processes there, like forming those membrane attack complexes that'll put holes into microorganisms and cause them to die. It can also lead to dilation of our blood vessels, also known as vasodilation, also known as inflammation. And also, remember that elevated body temperatures can also be an effective defense. We call that fever. Yeah. All right, so that kind of summarizes what we learned in chapter 14. And then let's kind of contrast that with what we will learn in the upcoming chapter. So we're going to see some of these cells again, but we're also going to see some new cells. So we're going to learn about cells called T cells and B cells. And what's kind of interesting about our adaptive immune response is that it has the ability to remember this kind of agents that it encounters, and then the ability to mount a more pronounced response after that. So there are some special, what they call memory cells that kind of have the ability to, they don't have a brain, but they do have the ability to recall previous exposure. And then instead of the complement proteins, we're going to see a different kind of protein referred to as an antibody. that can bind to pathogens. So that's what we're going to be learning about in chapter 15, but kind of remember that it's not, just one or the other. You have both systems in operation here. And you have this first line, and then if pathogens are able to overcome this first line, then you have the adaptive immune response that's able to develop later on. All right, so there's a little bit of an overview. Okay, so let's learn more about the adaptive immune response. We just learned that this is a response that developed. Okay, go ahead, Blessing. Yep.
So for the final exam, do we also have to have this background knowledge to us, maybe to compare and contrast between the innate immunity and the adaptive immunity?
Right, that's the idea here, is that we're going to be learning about how this adaptive immune response is tailored to a specific microorganism. So it's nice that if you kind of have an understanding how it differs from this kind of generic system that forms your innate immune response. So yes, be able to kind of understand what are some of the differences between these two types of responses here. There is overlap, which makes things confusing, but in general, there are distinct differences too.
Thank you.
All right, so this is somewhat complicated here, but so we're going to see a bunch of different words like antigen, for example. So this particular word here is derived from, it's a contraction of two words. The first word is antibody. So antibody, that's where the anta comes from. And the last part of the word, gen, refers to as generator. So it's antibody generator. So something that will elicit the production of an antibody. So we have this word thrown in there even before we learn about what an antibody is. But anyways, so that's why it's a little complicated learning this kind of stuff here. But any substance that will elicit this adaptive immune response is basically an antigen. So that could be a living bacterium. It could be a pathogenic virus. But it could also be something benign, something harmless like pollen. Or it could be something that your body just doesn't like, in foods that you eat. So it could be something, trying to think of something that, people have problems with that they eat. I don't know, anyone have a food allergy? Gluten, yeah, that'd be a good example, yeah.
Lactose.
Lactose, yeah. Okay, and then we're looking at a couple of different kinds of responses here, or kind of characteristics of your adaptive immunity. One is that there's recall or memory of the initial exposure that will then provide a more full secondary response. And how, well, why is that? Well, that's because there are these specialized cells that it's their job to recall initial exposures, to certain substances, to particular antigens, and then to kind of communicate that for a secondary response to another exposure by the same entity. And fortunately, our body has this this immunological memory, because this is really the basis of modern day vaccination. So the concept here of vaccination is that you are exposed to a substance that's very similar to a pathogen, if not the pathogen itself. It could be like what we call an attenuated version of a pathogen. So it could be like an inactive version of a virus that's unable to replicate, for example. You could be exposed to that, or to fragments of a particular pathogen, like a virus. And then those pieces of the virus act as an antigen that will induce immunological memory, so that when you are exposed to the real thing, then you can mount a more faster response than before. All right, the other feature of our adaptive immune system is what we call tolerance. So tolerance means that means that your cells basically ignore or doesn't react to, in this case, to our own cells. So this is actually very very delicate balance if you think about it, because there's all these things in the world that that you have not even been exposed to yet, and yet your body needs the ability to recognize what is something that could potentially harm you versus something that may not be. And this system that you have is very good, but it's not perfect because a lot of you have, for example, you have allergies. Right, Aiden, you were struggling with allergies this year, and that's because your body has a tough time, as well as others, including myself, have a hard time distinguishing that that something like pollen is foreign, but it's not necessarily harmful to me, and yet it still elicits a response. So it's very very difficult. So this one's very hard for our body, but yet, it is very effective. Okay, so we have a couple of different kinds of cells involved in our adaptive immune response. We have cells we call T cells and cells we call B cells. And your textbook begins by describing the immunity that's conferred by the T cells. So that's, and they call this type of immunity cell-mediated immunity. So this is the type of immunity conferred that's made possible by T cells. It's called cell-mediated because these T cells are identifying basically a foreign agent or like a pathogen that is actually residing within one of our own cells. So this could be, this self cell, again, is one of your own cells. It could be a cell that's infected by a pathogen. Okay, so the T cell could recognize this infected cell from a non-infected cell. How does it do that? Well, the idea is that, during this replication process, pieces of the pathogen could be placed by the infected cell on its outer cell membrane. And therefore, will signal these T cells that, I'm infected. Another possibility is that the self cell is one of these phagocytes from our innate immune system. For example, it could be a dendritic cell or a phagocyte that has engulfed a pathogenic bacteria or virus, broken it down, and now it's displaying on its outer surface pieces of that pathogen to kind of signal to the rest of the body that you are infected. So we had this term, which it doesn't show up here, but it's called an antigen presenting cell. So cells that will come in contact with a pathogen and will break parts of it down and then display it on its plasma membrane, its cell membrane, for other cells to identify infection. So we call that an antigen presenting cell. All right, so these T cells will recognize those antigens. And we're going to see in a moment here that these T cells can identify these antigens by using receptors on their own plasma membrane that will bind specifically to those pieces. All right, to make things a little bit more complicated, we're looking at two different kinds of T cells. And the letter T is actually from the word thymus, which is actually where these cells develop from. So that in case you're wondering why is it a T cell versus an A cell or something else. Okay, so we're looking at two different kinds of T cells. First one here, cytotoxic. So the idea is that these are cells that will, physically bind to these cells that are displaying pieces of the pathogen on its exterior. So there's physical contact between a receptor on the cytotoxic T cell and the antigens that are on the outside of the cells. And then that cytotoxic T cell will release substances that will lead to apoptosis of the self cell. This cell will undergo apoptosis. Hey, we learned about that before. Who can remember? What do we mean by apoptosis?
Cell death.
Cell death, that's right. So the cytotoxic T cell will release substances that will cause this cell that has come in contact with that pathogen to die. And then the cytotoxic T cell can release itself and then repeat that process with another cell. Okay, and then we have helper T cells. These T cells also have receptors that can bind to a cells that are displaying pieces of pathogens. But then they can release substances. We call those cytokines. Do you remember the cytokines are chemicals that can travel between one cell to another as a form of intercellular communication, and that can lead to various immune responses. So we're going to see how these cells can talk to macrophages. So that causes more phagocytosis, more engulfment and destruction of that pathogen. And those helper T cells can communicate with B cells. And the B cells are the ones that are responsible for making antibodies. So there's there's like crosstalk between cells. All right, so we're going to come back to the T cells, but what about the B cells? Well, the B cells are involved in immunity too, and that form of immunity that the B cells are responsible for is called humoral immunity. Now, initially, when you look at the word, you're thinking, haha, that's funny, it's humorous. But no. The word humoral derived from the humors, which is like way before modern medicine. The Greeks used to believe that our bodies were composed of these fluids called humors. So humor refers to fluid. Like in this particular case, blood. So in this case, we have B cells, and the letter B refers to bone marrow. B is for bone marrow. So this is where those B cells are derived from. And the B cells are responsible for making the antibodies. Okay, to go back to the humors, which is blood, the idea here is that the antibodies will recognize and specifically bind to antigens in blood. So antibodies bind to antigens in blood, so that's where the humoral part comes in, versus inside of cells. So remember, the T cells they're going after the cells that are either infected or that have engulfed a pathogen. So T cells are going after antigens inside of cells. B cells, they're targeting antigens that are outside of cells, that are in fluids. Okay, so you got a couple of different systems or processes working for you there. So that's a good thing. It just makes learning more complicated, though, right? Yeah.
Do antibodies come from bone marrow?
They actually come from these specialized cells called plasma cells, but these are they're developing from cells that have their origin from bone marrow.
Okay, is it a stem cell? Is it direct?
It's coming from the stem cells. Okay. That's right. Yeah. All right, so hopefully, thankfully we have this graphic that can kind of, put things together for us. So, beginning at the upper left there, we have our dendritic cell. You may be thinking, wait, we're learning about the adaptive system. but the dendritic cell is part of our innate immune response. And that's true, because they were kind of compared in your book as like, I can't remember, like a sentinel type, looking as a scout, looking for infection and encountering potential pathogens, engulfing them, breaking them down, and then basically putting those pieces of the pathogen on its exterior to kind of display for other cells what's present. Well, some of those cells that may recognize those pieces of the antigen are your T cells. So if they recognize and bind to them, then that can cause cell proliferation. So the idea here is that your dendritic cells are like scouring and breaking down all sorts of things that your body is encountering, and you have the ability to make thousands and thousands of different kinds of T cells that have like different receptors on them. So there are T cells with like thousands and thousands of different kinds of receptors for substances that you have never even faced before. But then the idea is that if and only if that cell encounters that substance, then it will divide and proliferate. So we have this process of what we call clonal selection going on here. So trying to imagine, your cells have the ability to generate like millions of different kinds of receptors, through genetic recombination, to try and create receptors for every possible scenario that exists, even though you may never encounter them. And then if you do encounter them, then those cells will divide. Only those cells will divide. Not all the cells, but just the ones with that specific kind of receptor. Okay. Okay, then what? Then we have a couple possible outcomes here. One is that these T cells will bind to these infected cells and promote apoptosis. So that's what this is supposed to represent here. This cell will bind to the infected one and promote cell death. And that will hopefully prevent further infection, further replication of that bacterium or virus. Another possibility is shown over here on the right side with these helper T cells. So the H is for helper, C is for cytotoxic. So H is for helper, C is for cytotoxic. So for the helper cells, they will release cytokines that can promote phagocytosis, macrophages, engulfing even more than they did before to eliminate pathogens, and also cytokines that can activate the B cells on the right side here, leading to antibody production. There's a number of different ways that antibodies can, inactivate pathogens. So this is just one example here, but we'll see more in the future. Well, let me stop here. See if we have any questions. I know it's a lot for a Monday after Easter, right? All right, so I think we're gonna stop here, and, you know, let me know if you have any questions, but, do we have a lab tomorrow? Oh, okay, you were listening, good job. Do we have class Wednesday? Yes, okay. All right, everyone, have a good day.